Hi, this is Edward Troxel. In today's tutorial, we did decide to go ahead and continue on with the series, and so this is part 11 of the series. In today's tutorial, we're going to look at copying keyframes in the effects. There are some issues in that if you copy track level effects, it may not have the proper value at the beginning of the section that we're copying it over, and in fact, I'm telling it to only copy the keyframes that are in the area that we're actually looking at. So let's take a look and see how we can actually copy keyframes for this. Will affect all effects that are on events, tracks, project, and as well as transitions, which I'd never used a keyframe on a transition, but if it had one, then it would copy it there as well. So let's see how we can do that. So here's our copy effect routine. And all of this up here is exactly the same. We have one case for each type, and then for each type we have to get our new effect and our original effect, and then we're copying from the original over to the new. So now let's look at our original p2.keyframes.count. If that equals 0, then we're going to do the same thing we did before. Just p1.value equals p2.value. If it has keyframes, then we need to go through and copy over all the keyframes. So else, we're going to copy over the keyframes. The first thing we need to do is change our new effect for this particular parameter. We need to change isAnimated equal to true. That means it can have keyframes. If it's false, then it does not have keyframes. So isAnimated means it can change over time. Now I'm setting me an integer variable, which I just called I, set that equal to 0, and every time we add a new keyframe, we're going to increment this value. So for each, and then this is the part that's going to change for each one. So we have to, this one is an OFX RGB keyframe because this is an OFX RGB parameter. And then we just call that KF in P2.keyframes, our original effect.keyframes. Now we need to get the time code for this keyframe. So our time code, which I just called TC, is KF.time. Then if this is a track, then I need to subtract the leftmost time from it because we want to move it over to match where the new events are on the timeline, and the leftmost event is going to start at 0. So if there's a keyframe on a track level, then we need to adjust it left the same amount. Then if the time code that we got is greater than or equal to 0, in other words, it's on the timeline. If that is the case, then we want to do this line right here, which is a set value at time. So on the new effect dot set value at time, and the time is going to be TC, which is the time code we just got from the old effect, and then KF.value, which is the keyframe value. So we're passing it the value of the original effect as it was at that time code. Then, using this integer variable, I'm going to get the ith keyframe, which the first time will be 0, second time will be 1, third time will be 2, because these are all 0 based. And the reason I'm doing that is this does not return the keyframe to me. So p1.keyframes I dot interpolation equals the keyframe that I'm looking at on the original effect dot interpolation. So that will copy that parameter over as well. And then I'm doing the I++, so that the second time I can look at the keyframe number 1 and then the keyframe number 2, and that will increment each time. So this will copy all of the keyframes over for the OFX RGB keyframes. Of course, now we got to do the exact same thing for RGBA. So we've added this exact same section, only we've changed this one word from RGB to RGBA. And then we do the same thing down here. We change this one word to OFX double keyframe. And then we keep doing that for each one of these, OFX double 2D keyframe, and so forth and so on. Otherwise, it's exactly the same code. Each one of these is exactly the same, except for that one word right there. So we change this one word for each one, and then just copy it down for every entry in this switch. Now you notice though, we say if is track. Well, where is track? How do I know this is a track? Well, we had to make a choice to see if it is a track, and I added that right here. So in the definition of this copy effect, we are using is track. Now, if we move up a little bit where we have our copy effects, now I had to add my is track to my call for copy effect. So here is my is track, but my copy effects, I also had to have the is track passed to it. And so now we can look and see where are the various places this is passed. Well, if we scroll on up, you can see here on our copy fade, we now copy effect, and here I am adding a false at the end because it is not a track. Then we come on up, let's go a little farther, and we get our copy video event. Here we have our copy effects call, and we have it set to false because this is not a track, it's a video event. So then let's scroll on up, and here we have a copy effects where it's copying the effects on the video track, and so we have it set to true in this case because this is a track. Then if we come on up a little bit farther, we have this copy effects where we're copying it from the project, and this is set to false. It actually might be necessary to set this one to true since it relates to the entire project. I haven't actually tested this one out, so it's quite possible that this one should be set to true. I have never used a set of keyframes on a project level effect, so set that one however you think it needs to be set. I set it to false. So now looking at our project here, I do have a track level effect on this track, and you can see I have a keyframe here, a keyframe here, and a keyframe here. This first keyframe is after the beginning of my first selected event, but before the event that I wanted it to work on. So you can see that it changed from this event to this event. It's actually going to start at its original value at the beginning of the timeline, even though that's going to be over here. So that's the reason I said track level effects could be a little odd depending on how the values are changing. Then I have an effect here, and once again I'm changing a couple of values. This one is going from there to there, and this one is going up from there to there, and so we can see that these two values are copied over when we take a look at this to see what's happening. So now we have all of the events selected again. Let's run the script. Open the project, and you can see here we have the effect, and as I said, it started way down here and went up really fast instead of going up slow like it did in the other one. But you can see that we have the multiple keyframes listed here. Then here we can look again, and we can see this one goes from there down, and this one goes from here up. So all the keyframes were copied. This is a nice addition to that routine in that it can now copy all of the keyframes so that if you had animation turned on, then we're not going to lose that animation now. I hope you like this tutorial. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next tutorial.